Hey, Adam here, and welcome back. I've been asked a lot to cover the disappearance of Corrie McKeague, so that's what we're going to be doing today. Just before we get into that though, I've actually had a lot of great comments recently, so I just wanted to thank you for that. It really helps the channel a lot when you leave comments and you like the videos and things like that, so thank you very much. Right, so Corrie is actually slightly younger than I am, though we were both born in the same year. He'd be about 27 now. But Corrie disappeared on the 24th of September 2016 when he was 23. And this was 8 days after his birthday. And just for those not from the UK, Corrie's disappearance is fairly well known here, and a lot of people to this day still find it very strange. So I thought we'd go through it and dissect what happened. Just as a bit of background, Corrie joined the Royal Air Force in 2013 and was posted to the No. 2 Squadron Royal Air Force Regiment based at RAF Honington. And at the time of his disappearance, he was considered a Senior Aircraftman gunner and medic on the squadron. And just by all accounts, Corrie was very highly regarded and well thought of. Now, the first we hear of Corrie's disappearance comes from the BBC, who released this piece of CCTV footage. Here's what was said. Police searching for an RAF serviceman who disappeared in the early hours of Saturday have released CCTV footage taken shortly before he went missing. Corrie McKeague, based at RAF Honington in Suffolk, was last seen in Bury following a night out. CCTV suggested the 23-year-old briefly slept in a doorway before getting up and moving on, possibly intending to walk home several miles away. Suffolk Constabulary said he was reported as missing on Monday afternoon. The RAF said it would not speculate on the case and has appointed an officer to support his family, and the Ministry of Defence then declined to comment on the case. So it's worth noting right off the bat that the search for Corrie was massive, and as you've probably come to expect by now if you've been tuning into this channel for a while, thermal imaging equipped helicopters and search dogs were involved in the search. But you've probably guessed it, it didn't appear that the dogs picked up Corrie's scent throughout the duration of the search, nor did the helicopters ever make any positive identifications. What's interesting too is that later we'll learn that we can pretty much ascertain Corrie's final location via CCTV, and there was no CCTV footage of him ever emerging from that area. At this stage though, the police can't have been fully aware of that, because this was stated on the 28th. Police are also asking dog walkers or anyone that may be out in the countryside around the town to get in touch if they notice anything unusual, and are asking people in the area to check any outbuildings. You know, most certainly given the benefit of the doubt here, because they either didn't realise that fact yet about the CCTV, or because they were just stumped as to where he could have possibly gone. So they were just searching the countryside around Bury, to the RAF base. So on the 29th of September, the Mirror stated this. Corrie was last seen walking through a town centre alone following a night out with friends. It is believed he may have been trying to walk back to his RAF base, which is almost 3 hours away, on foot. Corrie has not contacted anyone since his disappearance in the early hours of Saturday morning. His mum, Nicola, 48, said, "I'm just trying to get his face out there to as many people as possible in the hope it will jog someone's memory. Somebody must have seen him." CCTV showed he slept briefly in a doorway before standing up and walking away. Police suspect he may have tried to walk home to RAF Honington in Suffolk, which is a 20-minute drive away. Or as said, 3 hours on foot. Chief Inspector Simon Mills said he is known to go out nights with his friends and go back on foot regardless of distance. For him to go missing is abnormal behaviour, but for him, walking back is normal. The reason he was reported missing is that he failed to show at work. We are concerned now because of the vulnerability. If he's injured himself between here and RAF Honington, it's a vast area for us to look for him. On the 30th of September, the East Anglian Daily Times reported that a team of 26 police officers, search and rescue volunteers and Royal Air Force police were still out searching between RAF Honington and Bury yesterday, as a police helicopter continued to circle above. The police are continuing to ask anyone who may have spoken to him before 3:20 AM, but they are particularly keen for anyone who saw him after his last confirmed sighting on Brentgoval Street to come forward as a matter of urgency. The police then said that they were still working on reviewing the CCTV footage, to try and trace his last movements. I don't want to put any words in Corrie's family's mouth or anything like that, but I think it's fair to say that they found the whole situation off and unusual, especially at that time. The East Anglian reported, Corrie's uncle spoke of how the family is questioning everything in the wake of his disappearance, with police still unable to confirm any sighting of Corrie after he was seen on CCTV outside the Grapes pub on Brent Govel Street at 3:23 AM. I want to reiterate how odd this was that they couldn't locate his position after Brent Govel. Again, Corrie's uncle, as well as the rest of the immediate family, had been in a lot of contact with law enforcement, as you might imagine. Well, Corrie's uncle later stated that the area off Brent Govel Street had been physically tested by those conducting the investigation, and it was shown to be impossible for him not to have been recorded on CCTV if he'd left on foot, though this wasn't noted until November of 2016, or at least it wasn't reported until then. Now, on the 2nd of October, the Daily Mail wrote an article basically posing the question as to whether Corrie had been taken. And at that time, it seems Corrie's mother was leaning in that direction. It seems like she felt something was up right from the start. Here's what was reported. Police investigating the disappearance of a missing RAF serviceman are not ruling out the possibility that he may have been taken, his mother revealed. She said it's looking more and more suspicious as time goes on, and they're not actually finding him. It's something they're thinking of. Obviously, it's something they're looking at, but it's certainly not something they're shouting about to me. I want to make it clear at this point, as per a number of articles I've been through, that the family did not for a moment believe that this was an intentional disappearance. Law enforcement will generally tell you that typically doing that will leave a digital footprint, and there was just absolutely nothing to find there. More so, however, is that the family actually spoke a lot about Corrie, and his uncle described him as a happy-go-lucky serviceman, and he also had plans to see family members that week, which he was excited about. So I do side with the family on matters like that, because they know him better than anyone else. The day after Corrie's mother stated that things were looking suspicious, the police made their own statement. This was reported by The Guardian on the 3rd of October 2016. Police searching for a missing RAF serviceman have played down his mother's fears that he may have been abducted. Corrie's mother said that her son would never be out of contact with his family for so long. He had spoken to his brother 4 times the day before he went missing. This is not Corrie, he would not do this out of choice, she added. So to clarify, one of the reasons that Corrie's mother seemed to believe that something was amiss here, aside from the fact that they literally couldn't locate him, was that earlier in 2016 in July, a different RAF serviceman was almost taken by a couple of assailants, and this was 30 miles north of Bury. Corrie's mum seemed to be questioning whether something similar could have happened to her son. However, a spokesman for the Suffolk Police said that the 2 incidents were different, and this line of thought has never been the main inquiry. He said, "The force was concerned about Corrie's welfare, but there was no evidence of foul play. The most likely scenario is that he has been for a night out, he's had a bit to drink, and he's attempted to walk back to the base. That is the working theory, but obviously we keep an open mind to every possibility." Law enforcement had also been in close contact with Corrie's phone provider in an attempt to track his location, and GPS data from the phone suggest it moved to the Barton Mills area, which is 22 miles to the northwest of Bury and near 2 other air bases, RAF Mildenhall and RAF Lakenheath. Police have not recovered the phone, but they believe it may have been lost or discarded, as the timings of the movements match a bin lorry run from Bury to Barton Mills. Police do not believe Corrie himself was picked up by the bin lorry, as the weight of the load was recorded as under 15 kilograms or 2 stone and 5 pounds. So the weight of the load the lorry was carrying ends up being disputed a number of times, and it gets a bit odd, though we're not quite there yet. But from the information we've spoken about thus far, can you even imagine how weird this must have been for the investigators? Corrie walked down a street and was never spotted leaving that street, despite the fact that authorities themselves said it would be impossible to leave the area without being captured on CCTV again. They then found out that the bin load was only 15 kilograms, making it impossible for Corrie to have been inside. However, because there were no real alternatives and there was no evidence of foul play at all, you can see why the authorities zoned in on the bin lorry and began to question whether or not the data was accurate. So the idea was that they traced Corrie's phone to a similar area that the bin lorry had been because they believed that the lorry matched the movements of the phone. However, this theory took a hit early on after they seized the lorry because, as the East Anglian Daily Times reported, the phone of missing Corrie McKeague has not been found following a search of a bin lorry seized by police. The phone, a Nokia Lumia 435, was traced by police looking for Mr. McKeague, who lives at RAF Honington, and its movements match those of the lorry. However, it has not been found, and the bin lorry has been released by Suffolk Constabulary. The driver of the lorry was interviewed by police, and searches will be undertaken at points the lorry may have discarded rubbish to see if there was a phone in the refuse. Now let's just take a minute to appreciate how odd that is. They're able to track Corrie's phone via GPS data, and they came to the conclusion that the data seemed to match the lorry's movements. So the simple answer would be that the phone has just ended up in the back of the lorry. However, after a thorough search of the lorry, the phone could not be located, nor could it be located in any of the points the lorry discarded rubbish. Now, to be fair, I imagine searching these sites for a phone is not exactly an easy or a simple task by any means. It is important to note though that they did pour significant resources into these searches, as they had very large search teams present looking. So law enforcement were again confused, and this time they shut off the A11, which is a busy main road near Barton Mills, to thoroughly search it. It's just worth pointing out too that the Royal Air Force search teams as well as police search teams were present here, but again they found absolutely nothing at all. On the 7th of October, the East Anglian Daily Times then reported, searches are expected to continue across West Suffolk in the coming days. Yesterday's search near Mildenhall came after cell data traced Corrie's phone to Barton Mills in the early hours on Saturday, September 23rd. A bin lorry which made the journey from Bury to Barton Mills at around the same time as Corrie's phone was searched by police but has since been ruled out. Also on the 7th, the Daily Record state that the police have refused to rule out the possibility that Corrie had been taken and that this is a real mystery. You can see why too. It appears to me as though law enforcement fully expected to find the phone, and when they couldn't locate it, it just kind of threw a spanner in the works, so to speak. Just before disappearing, he'd gone for a takeaway, and the worker who served him his food told authorities that there was nothing unusual that night. He said that Corrie would often come in for a meal, once every week or two. He said that this night Corrie was in a good mood as usual, and they were laughing and chatting as they always did. So it didn't appear that Corrie was scared or anything of that nature. You can just feel the heartache of the family too, because it's one thing for an accident to have happened, but it's the not knowing that makes it so much worse. On the 10th of October, Corrie's mum stated this: police are confident Corrie is not still in Bury and has not left on foot. This can only mean there is third party involvement. There is just no evidence so far to prove that. As such, I would ask people to help me find this evidence, as someone does know something. The LE Standard also reported, despite searches by the police helicopter and on foot, no trace of Corrie has been found in the 10-mile stretch between Bury and the base. These searches will continue today. It's odd to me that they found evidence that his phone had been miles away from Bury and the base in Barton Mills, yet the main inquiry was still that Corrie may have had an accident walking back to the base, despite there being no CCTV evidence of him ever emerging from Brentgoval. Though I do suppose, when you have absolutely no leads or evidence at all, what are you supposed to do, On the 11th, a highly praised search dog team from Ipswich joined the search, and the handler stated, they will find anything with a human scent, a shoe, a glove, anything someone has been handling recently. As you might imagine though, the search dogs never found Corrie's scent, so it does appear that he just wasn't in the area at all, if that wasn't already clear. There was an interesting article by The Sun titled Mystery Swells After RAF Gunner Corrie McKeague, 23, Vanishes off the face of the earth near Terror Snatch Site. It is 3 weeks since Corrie, 23, left his RAF base at Honington, Suffolk. His disappearance is as baffling as it is worrying, with one RAF source saying it was as if he'd been lifted right into the air. His phone remained in Bury until around 4 AM according to signal records, and can be traced moving 14 miles away to Barton Mills near the RAF base at Mildenhall, at a speed which suggests it must have been in a vehicle. It is possible he could have willingly or unwillingly got in another vehicle, which is why so far he has not been spotted on CCTV leaving the town on foot. His family believe it is possible someone picked up the phone and threw it after realising it was of little value. Either way, the device was disconnected from its network in the area at around 8 AM. That leaves the possibility it could have been hit by a car or fell into one of the many waterways along the route. So far, a search operation involving police helicopters, dogs, RAF personnel and the Suffolk Lowland Search and Rescue Team has failed to find any sign of him. It's interesting that a lot of these disappearances that we cover on the channel, The person always moves out of view of CCTV first before they just vanish. I've reported on a lot that were very similar in some ways. If you're interested in that, I would definitely have a look at some of my videos specific to the UK, especially the older ones and the Manchester Canal video. This is a feature of some of those videos. On the 19th, Corrie's uncle posed another interesting question. He said, "What makes this so hard to understand is how someone in a modern British urban town can vanish without any trace by digital or human sight." Corrie's brother then described the disappearance as surreal, and honestly it's hard to argue with that assessment. It's very difficult to make sense of what took place here. On the 20th, his mother also made a very interesting observation. When speaking about the CCTV footage, she said, "Corrie walks just to the back of the shops. It's where deliveries are made. It's a dead end, it doesn't go anywhere. Corrie is quite clearly on CCTV seen walking in the middle of the road into this loading bay where vehicles and bins and stuff like that are. He never gets seen coming back out. There's not one image of Corrie on CCTV in the entire area of Bury that's been captured. It would take an expert months of preparation to be able to evade that, and Corrie just wasn't trying to. He has just vanished. Somebody else must be involved because he's not seen leaving on foot at all." She also stated that when he goes on these nights out, he doesn't regularly walk the long distance back to the base, but had done so in the past. Which is a little bit of a contradiction as to what's been reported thus far. The authorities seem to be of the opinion that this was something Corrie did frequently, but now the mother is stating that he didn't do it very often at all. Okay, I really could make this video hours long and just go through every single article, but at this stage I think we've got the general gist of the incident. So let's dissect the official leading theory as to what happened. The police stated that the bin lorry that was questioned earlier actually had a heavier load than had been reported initially. The reported load was stated as being 15 kilograms, but it was then found that the lorry had actually held a weight of more than 100 kilograms or 220 pounds. It's never been made clear how this mistake happened. Was the measurement device not working? Was it displaying the wrong number? Was the data read incorrectly? I've no idea how the correction was made. You just want an odd thing to get wrong, you know? Anyway, forensic examinations of the lorry had found that there were no traces of Corrie in the lorry at all, which you would absolutely expect to find had he have been in there accidentally. Initially, Corrie's mother seemed to agree that this explained what happened. She said, "The weight of the bin that was lifted the night Corrie went missing has been incorrect. The true weight is over 100 kilograms. This can really, devastatingly, only mean one thing." The theory goes that Corrie had fallen asleep in a bin and had then passed away after being collected by the lorry. I'm not going to go into any depth at all there, I'm sure you can understand the implication. After having time to process the information, it appears as though the family didn't agree because they had said that Corrie took pride in his appearance and would never have slept in a bin, especially with his car being so close. All in all though, over 7,200 tonnes of waste at the landfill site had been thoroughly searched and there was no evidence of Corrie's presence. There was a second major search too, and that also didn't find any evidence of Corrie's presence. In total, the police spent a massive £2.15 million on the search, which has been one of the most expensive search operations in Suffolk's history. Corrie's mum later pointed out that as per CCTV, Corrie had slept in a doorway of a shop near Brentgoval Street for around 2 hours. She said that she finds it hard to believe that he would then get up from that sleep and then go sleep in a bin. She also disputed the load weight because she found out that loads of over 100 kilograms or 220 pounds were not out of the ordinary at all for that route. However, the police maintained that in the period between January of 2016 and February of 2017, the loads were normally between 44 and 66 pounds, and the load was 220 pounds once and then 256 pounds once as well, and that was when they believed Corrie was inside. It's not just Corrie's mum or family that don't believe the main theory though. A retired detective known as Colin Sutton stated that his best guess was that there was at least one person involved in Corrie's disappearance, meaning that he may have felt that foul play had occurred here. In the end though, there are no real conclusions to be drawn, only theories that try to make sense of the situation. Unfortunately, whatever did take place here left absolutely no evidence behind at all of the final outcome. It seems that if he was in the bin, there would have been forensic evidence of that, but as said, such evidence was never found. There's going to be a full inquest into Corrie's disappearance this year, I believe, so perhaps I can make an update based on the information to come. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to end this one here and I'm going to hand it over to you in the comments, so please do share your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like if you found the video interesting, or a dislike if you didn't. I'm just looking for your honest opinion. I'd also just like to say a massive thank you to the patrons who help make these videos possible, so thank you all very much. If you'd like to get involved with the Patreon and the research effort, then please do find the link to that in the description below. Other than that, I hope you've had a great day or evening depending on where you are. Be safe guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.